These are the books that I read on tour. These are the books that came into my orbit or came back into my orbit on tour. This one was just lingering in the backpack and I didn't read it. I was kind of saving it for if I needed something in a pinch. Tabucchi is one of my favorite authors ever, and I know that this is going to be a great read. But these are the books that I read on tour. These books of poems I read from. It goes without saying that I brought along my Gerard Manley Hopkins selected poems that's introduced by John Stammers. I keep that book in my backpack basically at all times. This is the book I'm talking about, of course. When you're on tour, a poem by Hopkins is like a little capsule of peace that you can sort of open and let envelop you. Also, just before you think to ask it, I have not acquired the new Thomas Pynchon novel yet. And yes, I am aware that the new Pynchon novel takes place in Wisconsin. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot the most important one. So these were the things I threw in my backpack. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Other Traditions, Dreams of Dreams, and the Hopkins poems aforementioned. Hitchhikers I read first. I loved it. It was the perfect kind of thing for me. It remains silly throughout. Earth is being destroyed and remade. Machines make the most improbable events that can possibly happen. People somehow don't really panic. I was trying not to panic on my first long tour with my band, Combat Naps. I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in a copy that I found for $1 at St. Vinny's. Likely story. I did most of the reading of this book between Salt Lake City and Portland. That was when I read the last 150 pages of the book. I loved the feeling in this book like everything was going to crap and they were all going to die, and then something would come out of nowhere and save things, and it would always be something funny and improbable. And that's what's exciting to read in a story. It's not exciting to read things that just happen as they happen in real life. If you're going to write something silly and science fictional, you damn well better write it silly and science fictional, you know? Oh gosh, the stuff about the poetry, that's something I want to highlight. That really hit me hard as someone who was on tour, singing my, poetry to people and thinking about what pain it must be causing them, or occasional pleasure, hopefully. I did underline some stuff in here. What did I underline here? I only know as much about myself as my mind can work out under its current conditions, and its current conditions are not good. I think about that pyramid of human needs. The spiritual needs are at the top of the pyramid, and you got to have your basic needs met to reach happiness and spiritual fulfillment. Something else I want to call out from this book, there's a fish that you put in your ear that translates what you hear by eating what you hear and then crapping it out as the thing that as words you can understand. I mean, how great is that? If you have been hesitating to read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy because you're a pretentious asshole like me, I just recommend that you hesitate no longer. I finished the book in Seattle, and then the tour manager's brother said, I have all of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the complete book, and so you can read the next one in that volume. But I was not to do that, unfortunately. There were other good things I wanted to read, and I had just visited Powell's Books. That was that video I made where I said I was at Powell's Books, and I made this really little kind of indecipherable video with just little snippets of me filming the shelves at Powell's. I don't even know if I have permission to have that video online. Well, yeah, I just want to say that while reading The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I was reading James Schuyler's selected poems, because that's what I bought at Myopic Books in Chicago on the Chicago stop of the tour. This I associate with Boulder. When I was in Boulder, I feel like I was reading this a lot, and around Colorado. And I was even starting to write more poems again in my little notebook as we were pulling up to Denver, because I felt inspired. My little pocket notebook, it gets all worn off because of abrasion and sweat, and then the only thing that maintains the text of composition books is the part that's covered up by tape, because the corners always come off. This corner came off entirely. I had to tape the corner just totally back on. So yeah, at Powell's, I got these 3 things. Oh, and at the stay in Minneapolis, I had gotten this book back, which I'd loaned to somebody. Oil for the Lamps of China, which is a new loan. And then I got Out of the Dark, which I'd loaned, and I don't think had been read, but the person gave it back to me. So this is just to paint a picture that kind of around the time that I was finishing The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, my backpack was ballooning up. It was full of all kinds of books. At that moment, I made the decision to read Scientific Progress Goes Boink. You all know my love for Calvin and Hobbes, do you? Well, if you don't, I really like It's a Magical World. I received it as a gift from Drew. I received it as a gift in a Secret Santa thing. This is the Scholastic edition, and here's the Drew edition. This is the one I most frequently read because it's the one that I first read, and it's a little bit nicer. Not to say that I don't appreciate having this one. I like having both copies because I want to honor that they were given to me as gifts. I want to honor them as gifts by keeping them. The It's a Magical World, it seems like on reprints, is like more darkly shaded than on earlier printings. This book, it makes me cry. You always on tour are looking for things that you're going to be able to pay attention to. You can definitely pay attention to Calvin and Hobbes. I can tell you that much. I picked Scientific Progress Goes Boink because I was looking at the shelves with Tim, and Tim was going through and like telling me which collections he'd already read. I wanted to get one that seemed to be like least familiar in his recollection, so that if he got to one in the van, it would be one that was most interesting to him. I was also interested to go from this extremely wide format to this kind of less wide format. It was also one of the less expensive books of Calvin and Hobbes that they had at Powell's. I think one of the reasons for that is that it has no color strips in it. It's all black and white. As advertised on the cover here, it does contain the duplicator sequence, which I think is the showstopper part of the book. There's another showstopper. There's this really virtuosic passage in the middle of the book that might be my favorite part of the book, where to avoid homework, first gravity is reversed, and then second, Calvin grows to such size that he bursts the bounds of the strip, and you get this page with these 3 strips that, like, I guess they ran in like dailies or something. And how cool would it be to just like, get this as the next installment of Calvin and Hobbes? I was just like in awe of this page as a work of Calvin and Hobbes art. I was loving this book. I was reading it. I'm having trouble remembering where I finished the book. I guess I could try to remember where I finished this book by trying to remember where I began Other Traditions. Wait a minute, I was reading them simultaneously because I was reading Other Traditions on the way to the San Luis Obispo area. And yes, and then at our stay in San Luis Obispo, or more accurately in Atascadero, I finished Scientific Progress Goes Boink. I was reading on my stomach on the carpet, and I was already well into Other Traditions. Pretty sure I finished Other Traditions on the way to Los Angeles. I forgot to talk about how Japanese death poems, I read some of those in Portland, and that was one of the several reasons I really liked Portland. But yeah, after Other Traditions, I kind of promptly started Out of the Dark in the LA area. And I finished it on day 1 of the drive back to Wisconsin when we were I was being driven through Utah. I drove through Nevada. It was when I was being driven through Utah after we stopped for Jersey Mike's. None of these details have anything to do with Out of the Dark. And then just so we stop this thing where I say where I read stuff, I finally read Too Loud a Solitude on between days 1 and days 2. Days 1 and 2 of the trip back. I sent an email to my most beloved teacher of college and one of the 3 best teachers I've ever had in my life, where I was saying, oh yeah, now I'm reading Too Loud a Solitude. And I said, oh, it has a lot of emotion in it, in the email. And then I was thinking, like, while I was reading it, I was thinking, why did I say it has a lot of emotion in it? It's so funny. It's so, the emotion in a funny, I was just thinking, oh yeah, like a novel that's thoroughly rollicking and like has that campfire feeling. That's got a lot of emotion to it. Something that's a very spirited joke, a spirited and sustained joke can be a vessel for emotion. That's kind of what I was rolling over in my head while I was reading Too Loud a Solitude, because I typed that phrase into that email. But yeah, first, these 2. Other Traditions, there's a piece in a Harper's. This is not the Harper's. There's a piece in a recent Harper's by Lydia Davis where she talks about reading Other Traditions on a train. Also, I just wanted to bring Ashbery, and I wanted to bring some Ashbery I felt like I could concentrate on. That wouldn't just be like dead weight in the backpack. No offense to Ashbery. So I picked Other Traditions. The reread was marvelous. Here's the table of contents if you forgot it. I think that on this read, I really liked the story of John Wheelwright a lot. I liked the kind of tragic hero, the guy who is like losing family wealth, trying to put his politics to work through his poetic gift, trying to like rally people. The tragedy of his death, I think in a car accident. A lot about John Wheelwright really tugged at my heartstrings. And I loved this part with Thomas Lovell Beddoes. I loved how Thomas Lovell Beddoes it's all about his big works and how their good parts they have to be taken with their bad parts. Their ponderous parts need to be taken with the angelic, or the kind of the sprightly parts. And a lot of his work is kind of gangly and unseemly. But then and there's all this kind of deprecatory aspect to other traditions that is just engaged with honestly, because he's just honestly looking at these people as like failures and weirdos. And then he will punctuate the talk, as in the case of like Beddoes, with just one of their poems. And then your laughter will cease and your tears will begin to flow. And I loved this dream peddlery. I thought that this was really cool. Dream peddlery. Dream peddlery. 1. If there were dreams to sell, what would you buy? Some cost a passing bell, some a light sigh, that shakes from life's fresh crown only a rose leaf down. If there were dreams to sell, merry and sad to tell, and the crier rung the bell, what would you buy? 2. A cottage lone and still, with bowers nigh, shadowy, my woes to still until I die. Such pearl from life's fresh crown, fain would I shake me down. Were dreams to have at will, this would best heal my ill. This would I buy. 3. But there were dreams to sell, ill didst thou buy. Life is a dream, they tell, waking to die. Dreaming a dream to prize is wishing ghosts to rise. And if I had the spell to call the buried, well, which one would I? 4. If there are ghosts to raise, what shall I call out of hell's murky maze? Whoa. 4. If there are ghosts to raise, what shall I call out of hell's murky haze, heaven's blue hall? Raise my loved, long-lost boy to lead me to his joy. There are no ghosts to raise, out of death lead no ways. Vain is the call. 5. Know'st thou not ghosts to sue? No love thou hast. Else lie as I will do, and breathe thy last. So out of life's fresh crown fall like a rose leaf down. Thus are the ghosts to woo. Thus are all dreams made true, ever to last. Out of the Dark I liked more than I thought I would. I thought that Modiano novels typically kind of evaporate a lot on reading because they're so existential. I interviewed for a bookseller position, and I said that I recommended Modiano's Out of the Dark as an existential thriller. Out of the Dark was very concrete and like a good movie, and it felt immersive. I particularly liked the vertiginous feel, kind of like I had a dream last night where I came upon, someone I love and some weird old guy kind of like doing it in an alley, basically. And I and I kind of sprang on them like with a gun and pointed at each of them. And then like kind of in rebellion against my pointing the gun at both of them, I like hurtled forward and tumbled forward. Like, even though I knew that was just going to kind of either, trap me or bring me to harm. And that vertiginous kind of hurtling forward into a dream, even when you know that like it's just going to lead to like a dead end, some kind of ghostly dead end, or some sort of terrifying, ill, or some irreparable grief, right? Like that kind of hurtling was what I felt when the characters in this novel chose to go to London instead of going to the place they wanted to go, which was Mallorca. Modiano, I've been flirting with, and I've been really wanting to read his book Missing Person, which was a book that my favorite teacher in high school loved and recommended to me. And that recommendation has just been like growing in volume in my head as its echoes compound. And I really need to read Missing Person. I loved Out of the Dark. I would read it again. Then I read Too Loud a Solitude. I just figured, so the story about me getting this book, I said I was kind of done with the stories of how I was getting books. Oh yeah, there's a couple cool stories here. So first of all, before I talk about Too Loud a Solitude, I want to talk about how I got these two books. The Reverberator was at the Friends sale in Berkeley, and I bought a t-shirt from the Berkeley Friends of the Library sale. I have that t-shirt now. I wore it on stage. It showed sweat a lot. I thought this was a really beautiful copy of the Reverberator, and you know, Friends sales, they're priced in a way, in a non-for-profit kind of way, so I was able to get this kind of handsome Grove Press Reverberator by Henry James for like just about no money. And you can see it's got like this thing from the printing press, whatever. Really excited about that. Everybody knows I like Henry James. This one was funny. We were looking for a sandwich place in San Francisco, and we parked in this place where you can't park, but you can maybe stand, and somebody was in the car, but I didn't really want to leave him alone, so people were out walking trying to find this sandwich place, and I was like, I'm just going to dash back and be with the person in the car because I don't want him to be alone. And in the process, I stopped at the San Francisco Public Library, where I had been the day before, to go to the bathroom, because I really needed to go to the bathroom too. And on my way out, I was like, you know what? That Bohumil Hrabal novel that I saw yesterday, Too Loud a Solitude, I'm just going to get it. It's like $3 or something. I'm just going to get Too Loud a Solitude. I remember glancing at the back and seeing the thing about the bales of paper, or the bales made of old books. And I was like that. And I remember talking to Amelia about that and her chuckling and me feeling like, you know what? I just got to get it. I've got to get it. It's meant to be. So I quickly bought it and then ran out. And by that time, everybody was in the car and wondering where I had been. I put Too Loud a Solitude in my back pocket, trying to like hide the fact that I'd had this little dalliance at the Friends sale. You're not supposed to waste time on tour, you know. You have places to be. You have people to disappoint. But I was really happy to have Too Loud a Solitude, and boy was I happy to have it on those 2 days when I was driving back. It was a lovely read. It was a heartfelt joke. The ending is kind of something you might expect might happen. The love story in it is so wonderfully specific to this grimy character. It's so beautiful what these two do. This book is so beautiful, it just has to be read. It can't be summarized. And it is like its own summary. It's so short, right? So just please read it, please. Look at this. Look at this. I pushed the stick. They go out flying a kite. I pushed the stick with the twine into the ground, tore a page out of my memo pad, and attached it to the tail. And as soon as the twine was back in my hands, she started screaming and reaching after the message as it jerked its way up to the sky, each burst of wind traveling through my fingers to my whole body. I even felt the message making contact with the tip of the kite. And suddenly I shuddered all over, because suddenly the kite was God, and I was the Son of God, and the cord was the Holy Spirit, which puts man in contact and dialogue with God. And once we'd flown the kite a few more times, the gypsy girl screwed up her courage and took over the twine, trembling as I had trembled, trembling to see the kite tremble in the gusty wind. And, winding the twine around her finger, she cried out in rapture. This is the kind of stuff I want to read in books. I don't want to read stuff too unlike that, personally. It was too dark to really begin anything else by the time I finished this on the second day of the trip back. And so thus concludes my tale of all of the things. Well, note, this is one of my favorite writers, as you know, and I'm really excited to have this back. I have this little Ira collection, and I'm excited to place this among its compadres, among its brethren. There you go. Be among your brethren. Be among the divorce Fulgentius, the divorce birthday, the linden tree, contemporary art, blah, 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 blah. Rampant New Directions fetishism. I'll also say that this Nikhil, who is at the place I stayed in Boulder, has a poem in this and gave me a copy because he had a bunch of copies. So thank you, Nikhil. I want to say about Japanese death poems that one thing that might sell this book to you is that it doesn't just have the poems, but in the case of some people who failed to write their death poems, it has the story of their failure to write their death poem, which is really alluring. There's a lot of alluring things about this book. I'm sure it's a book that many of you already have. Well, I'm tired and I have to go to bed, so I'm going to finish the video. More videos to come as I read my way through this wall of books.